see the icon. Oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, got it. This could be cool.
I think I can flip my camera. That's the other.
Oh, nice.
Oh. How do I get out? Yeah, you exited me, right? Because I think we're going to have an echo. Yeah. Does that work?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Okay.
Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Polins, and I have a studio in Somerville called Polins Atelier, also kind of known as the Boston School of Painting. Originally the Boston School of Painting, now Polins Atelier. I was invited to Arts District Boston to do a demo for you guys. And if you have questions, you should put them in the chat, and they will be referred to me by Jill. And I have a couple of students that you might hear in the background screaming out questions too, which they're welcome to do. So this is going to be approximately, what do we have? A half hour?
Yeah, half hour.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and paint for about a half hour. It's just going to be a start of something, and enjoy. Ta-da. And you guys, please, with questions, just shout them out anyway. Which I can start by saying that I am doing what's called an open grisaille, which means that I am using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. I use oil paints, by the way. I'm a realist painter, which means that I paint real things around me. And if we did like a view of the studio, you'd see a whole bunch of interesting stuff everywhere. Or even on the split screen, you can see something.
It exited, but that's okay.
I guess it's all fine. Anyway, so all I'm really doing is just trying to get a little bit of turpentine on the surface of this canvas because the paint will move easier. If I sound really quiet too, tell me to speak up. Jeff is always telling me to shut up. So, I guess you guys can kind of see I've got this plaster cast set up. It's just the head of Dawn by Michelangelo. And I'm just trying to think of like how I want to set this up on the canvas. So I'm really thinking about sort of the highest points, the lowest points, the farthest left and the farthest right. And I'm just trying to bring them all in as a shape. I don't get too caught up with much of anything. I'm not trying to be correct. I'm just trying to think about how to build shape. It's got to start out nice and flat before it can be much of anything. So I'm just making this inky color. I'm just trying to get a little bit of activity to happen on the canvas. I'm just really thinking about the drawing, being really basic. I'm just thinking of the outside also. I try not to get too caught up with the inside because if the outside isn't working, then
it really doesn't matter what I do. Nothing will make it. Nothing will help. So I'm really just trying to control the outside of this as best I can. And this is actually how I get my students to start for the most part. This is definitely the way to sort of build a sound shape and form. I can look on the inside kind of immediately to get an idea of where I see like shapes. I'm not trying to focus on detail. I'm trying to look at like big shapes. So for instance, I'm looking at a big shape of light versus a big shape of dark, like in my vision, and I'm just trying to create those areas. So, like as I start to darken something in kind of immediately, you can start to actually get a sense of what I'm looking at better. Kind of see the angularity of things. This is a really free way to work too. It's not about doing things quickly. It's about doing things sort of in a united way so that things can work together. There's a little bit of turpentine on my paper towel, so I'm just able to wipe out as much as I put stuff in. As I lose paint, I mix up more. Try and mix it similar to the tonality that it was. If it's a little darker, it doesn't matter. If it's a little lighter, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be too finalized in like the drawing. I'm just trying to get an idea of where things go. Are there any questions coming in?
I don't see any questions yet. Oh, this is looking good already.
You like it?
Mm-hmm. We have 6 people watching. Yay.
6 more than I get when I do it. Sometimes I go live and I'm just doing it when I'm like set up in the studio and I'm doing some painting and I'm trying to just like show people a little bit of process. It's just always, it's fun actually. It's really interesting to do it. It's nice to get like a small group of people that show up for a little bit. I also build things mainly with straight lines and angles, which is very easy to control. So I'm able to, manipulate shapes without worrying about some sort of a delicate curve or something that just doesn't really matter yet. You can see this is starting to take on a little bit of the personality of that cast that I'm looking at. I keep going back to this chin, the shape of the chin, or even the angle as the neck comes down. This is the neck reaching up, this is the jawline, the bottom edge of the nose, this is about where the eye will be. And I just keep thinking about how to move these things around a little. The start is something that people rush through. you want your start to sort of have a degree of competence and something that you can depend on. So you can move the whole painting forward, or the drawing forward, or what have you. So, you know, if you don't feel like you can depend on what you're doing, then you got to stay at that stage. You got to just keep developing that part. And this inky color is like something that makes it a little easier to develop some of that. That helps. It's amazing how much just wiping a little thing out can help. I'm trying to get a little bit of a sense of light by blocking in what's dark versus what's light. Maybe I'll make a little bit of a dark accent down here to show where the sort of the cast shadow of this form is. As it kind of reaches down that edge. You know, there's sort of the break line between the ground plane. It's actually sitting on the chair with a gray cloth behind it, just to make it a little simple to see the break line between the ground plane and the back plane. A little lighter. That a little bit better defined. Sort of the where the eye socket is, and the shape of the eye, just like this little break line in there. There's the upper lip. You can see I depend on my paper towel to really help out some of the drawing. Come in here. Get rid of some of it. Helps me to know where to move, like the edge of the chin, for instance. So that kind of works a little bit better all of a sudden. Again. So, you know, it starts to like make a little bit of visual sense. So how much more do I work this out? Well, it's up to me, really. It's not about a finite sort of definition, you know. Look at that. It's only been about 15 minutes, and I kind of have a fairly decent block. And, you know, I could stick this out a little bit and, like, just sort of fiddle with some shapes. That's the heating duct. That's the old students that we don't let out. They get locked in the radiator. Penance. Yeah. Bad students. Just feels good to play with some shapes a little longer. I'll get to a little bit of value too, so you guys can kind of see that. So it's like my students that are watching on, this is, you know, I try to do demos. Although I haven't done any lately, have I? I suck. But this is just a good way for them to see a little bit more insight about, you know, how I'm hoping that they get an idea of how something can begin, which I will keep repeating over and over because it's just so important. All right, so let's say I'm going to sort of leave it where it is for now. And I want to just sort of start to play with a little bit of values. So it's like across a lot of this, it's kind of like a mid-tone range. It's kind of bright up here. It's bright along that side of the nose, or the sculpted nose. I'm going to brighten it up a little. It's definitely dark where I've made it dark. So I want to make a value. So basically, burnt sienna, which is a red, and ultramarine blue, which is a blue, I can use them and I can make basically a black. And then when I add a little bit of white to it, it becomes a gray. And it could become warmer or cooler. So right now it's too warm, so I'm going to cool it down. And then I'm going to lighten it up. I don't want something that's like too dark. I want something that's not too light either, but it's like the Goldilocks thing. Let's see how this looks. A little dark. A little too cold. Warm it up. Lighten it up. Probably need it even lighter. I don't know if the palette shows up on the camera view, but
I just moved it so it does.
yeah, it just gives an idea of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's pretty good. So I'm looking for something that's not too light, not too dark, but sort of stands out different from this or from the blank canvas. And depending on how quickly I can get through this, I don't think I can get the whole canvas covered in the next, like 10 minutes, but let's see what I can just do. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of coverage where I see this particular value to be useful. Got a lot of burnt sienna in there also. A little more blue in there. You can see I'm spending more time mixing than putting the paint on, but that's on purpose. I mean, you got to sort of work it in a range. So I'm really trying to look at a shape of this value. And I'm looking for the biggest shape that I can of this value. And as I start to sort of fill things in a little bit, it starts to develop a rudimentary sense of volume, which can be very helpful. Pretty good. Maybe I'll get this right over in here a little bit. Bring this up in here. You know what? I think I'm going to go back to the slightly darker value that I mixed. Bring in a little bit more blue. I want to throw in some of the background because I want to try and make use of the blank canvas immediately. So the whole background is way darker than most of the values that are on the cast itself. So by starting to separate this from the cast, and I'm not trusting the edge that I made. I'm always trying to rethink what I'm seeing. But by starting to do that, it'll start to give more presence immediately. errant hair on there. Let me see if I can speed up and get this covered. Do you guys here have questions? It's okay if you don't. This turned out a little bit more blue, but I don't mind that. There's nothing that says that that's a bad match. Keep trying to get a little bit more solvent to loosen it up a little bit more. All right, let me get around to this side. Immediately it starts to like carve out the form a bit more. I don't know why I started right on that sort of bridge of the nose. Because I just want to get that graphic edge. I get a lot of questions about like mark making, and mark making is just simply how you use a tool. So like right now, like even as I come in here, I'm like twisting my brush to try and carve out a little shape underneath the nose, right where that, right where the, oh gosh, I think it's called the philtrum. That little place that catches your snot when your nose is running. I think it's called the philtrum. Yeah, that's the challenge. If you're out there in Instagram land and you really know what that little deviation in the underneath your nose is called, you can send it to us as an answer to any question. That's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
See who will respond. I'll do it there too. So just sort of cut in a little bit. So you can see I'm only using one brush, by the way, too. It's a number 4 filbert. And I can do things that are sort of small and delicate, or I can do things that are more broad and sort of shapely. And that's just getting used to my tools. I mean, all of you who paint or you students of mine that are here, you guys are getting facility at this stuff all the time, and you know it just grows with familiarity and use. Look at that! It has much more presence right away. Let me clean my brush for a second, and there's nothing really like pure white out of the tube, but if I take some white and I mix it and just get it a little bit off of pure white, that's exactly my goal with this, into too dark. See that? Let me get a little more white. So now I'm trying to just add basically a third value. Believe it or not, that's not white out of the tube. It's almost matching the canvas, but the canvas itself is also a little bit in not getting a direct light from above. And it's always good to stay away from brightest white. Jeez. Now this is going to become a project that I have to finish too. Sucks. More to do. Then we can auction it off, Jill.
Oh, yeah.
But if she gets the right name for the lowest thing, you get it for free.
That's right.
Is
Right.
it septum?
Yeah. It could, it might be that. You win.
Yay!
Maybe I should get a little value in for this bottom section because that's aggressively scary. And I still have like a couple minutes, I think. So basically, I'm trying to get the canvas covered by showing, yeah, it's close to what this is right now. By just big shapes, and that's kind of what I have time for. So I had thought about this beforehand. It's not like I'm deciding this on the fly that this is how I have to work. I was like, oh, okay, now I'm going to have a limited amount of time, and how do I want to use that time? And this is a good use of time because I'm able to make these large decisions on this small canvas. I think this is like a 12 by 16. And in doing so, things are starting to like make sense. They're allocated for certain choices of value. And that's what I would really want. Like this definitely has a graphic sense that I could develop, and turn into something more concise of a painting. I'm adjusting the drawing right now. I'm like squiggling the brush around to like get the edge of that bottom part. We're trying to want to catch that corner on the canvas. I'm going to go back to a brighter color. See if I can punch that little chinny chin chin.
We're getting a lot of really awesome comments.
Cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Jason. Cool, amazing.
That's great. I appreciate it, everybody. I really do. It's very nice to have people that respond. That's what we want from Instagrammers, right?
Connectivity.
We want engagement. Just like in-person stuff, too. Well, I'm getting close to having to stop, I would imagine. If there are questions out there, if you want to get in touch, I don't know, how do people know how to get in touch with me, Jill? What do we tell them?
Boston Painting School? I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah, at Polins Atelier, because it's Instagram. So do that one. You can look me up at Polins Atelier. I think you can actually, while we're still live, you can click on my link through Jill's feed. I think mine is just a secondary feed that gives you a secondary point of view to view. I'll make my blackest black so you guys can see it. It's just the same colors, burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. This will be my last thing I do for you. See if I can pull it off. Bump, 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 bump. You're welcome to get in touch with questions. We let people come to in-person classes here. Look at that. That's helping. Keep it all unified. I'll go with this. Dark is dark. Do we go off? I'll stop right there. Voila.
Yay. Wow, great job. That's amazing.
Thanks.
It's easy.
Looks easy.
It does. It makes it look so easy.
Was it helpful?
Mhm.
Hi.